Picture this: 6 million pages, decades of secrets, and even after everything we've been promised, thousands of documents still locked away. The assassination that changed America forever happened over 60 years ago, yet someone, somewhere, still believes you're not ready to know the full truth. Why? What could possibly justify keeping the darkest chapter of American history sealed in 2025? The answer isn't what you think. And what's inside those files? That might be even worse. November 22nd, 1963, the day America lost its innocence. But the story didn't end with the gunshots in Dallas. It began there. For more than 6 decades, the JFK assassination has haunted the American psyche, spawning countless theories, investigations, and an unshakable feeling that something isn't right. We've been told we'd get the truth. We've been promised transparency. Congress even passed a law in 1992 demanding it. Yet here we are, decades later, and the vault is still not empty. To understand why requires looking past the conspiracy theories and into something far more mundane, yet perhaps more disturbing: the machinery of government secrecy itself. 1992. The controversy around Oliver Stone's film JFK had reignited public demand for answers. Congress responded with the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, a landmark piece of legislation with a simple, powerful mandate. All records related to the assassination must be disclosed. No exceptions. Well, almost no exceptions. There was a deadline, October 26, 2017, 25 years to get everything in order, 25 years to prepare for full transparency. The law established a presumption of disclosure, meaning unless a president personally certified that releasing specific documents would cause identifiable harm to national security, law enforcement, or foreign relations that outweighed the public interest, everything had to be made public. It seemed straightforward. It seemed inevitable. The truth would come. The National Archives began building the collection. 6 million pages. Documents, photographs, audio recordings, video footage, interviews, cables, surveillance reports. Everything connected to that day in Dallas and the investigation that followed. The vast majority, they assured us, would eventually be available to anyone who wanted to look. Just wait until 2017. October 26, 2017 arrived. The deadline Congress had set a quarter century earlier, but the floodgates didn't open. Instead, President Trump, in his first term, delayed the release, citing those same national security concerns the law had anticipated. Some documents came out, others stayed locked. The promise was pushed forward again and again. President Biden continued the pattern. In June 2023, his administration introduced something called transparency plans. Sounds promising, right? Here's the catch. These plans essentially allowed the same intelligence agencies that wanted to keep secrets to decide what stayed secret. The CIA, the FBI, the very organizations whose activities might be documented in those files, got to write their own transparency roadmaps. They could continue withholding information to protect military defense, intelligence operations, law enforcement methods, and foreign relations. The process designed to force disclosure had been quietly transformed into a system that enabled continued secrecy. But then, January 23, 2025, President Trump, in his second term, signed Executive Order 14176, full declassification of all remaining JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination records. No delay, no more excuses. Finally, it seemed, the dam would break. And break it did. Sort of. March 18, 2025, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence announced that 80,000 pages of previously classified material would be released with no redactions. That same night, the National Archives posted 63,400 pages online. Researchers counted waves of documents, 1,123 records totaling 32,000 pages in the early evening, then another 1,059 records, 31,400 pages later that night. The numbers were staggering. Details about Cold War espionage operations, Operation Mongoose, the covert campaign against Cuba, surveillance programs, informant networks, the granular machinery of intelligence work that the CIA had resisted disclosing for decades. But here's where it gets interesting. In February 2025, as agencies scrambled to comply with the new declassification order, the FBI made an embarrassing discovery: 2,400 new JFK-related records. Documents they somehow hadn't identified in 3 decades of supposed compliance. Just sitting there, waiting to be found. If they missed 2,400 records, what else might still be missing? And then came the revelation that changed everything. George Joannides, a CIA officer you've probably never heard of. For decades, the agency maintained that Joannides had no significant connection to Lee Harvey Oswald or the events in Dallas. Just another bureaucrat in a sprawling intelligence apparatus. Nothing to see here. The 2025 releases told a different story. Documents disclosed in July revealed that Joannides had actively monitored Oswald before the assassination. He was connected to anti-Castro exile groups that overlapped with Oswald's own contacts and activities. For years, when Congress asked, when researchers pressed, when the courts demanded answers, the CIA had downplayed his role. Some say they outright lied. The agency had misled everyone about what Joannides knew, what he did, and when he did it. This wasn't a smoking gun proving a conspiracy. It was something almost more disturbing, proof that the CIA had spent decades managing the narrative, shaping what Americans could know about one of their own officers' connections to the most significant political murder in modern American history. Experts reviewing the documents didn't mince words. The agency's credibility, already strained, took another hit. If they lied about Joannides, what else had they lied about? Here's what they don't want you to fully understand. Declassified doesn't mean accessible, and full declassification doesn't mean full disclosure. Even with Executive Order 14176 declaring no more redactions, legal barriers still exist. Court seals, grand jury secrecy rules, tax privacy laws. These aren't classification issues, they're statutory protections that require separate legal processes to unseal. Documents can be fully declassified and still remain hidden behind these walls. When the Office of the Director of National Intelligence announced the 80,000-page release, they quietly noted that materials under court seal or protected by other laws would require additional steps. The fine print matters. Then there's the digitization gap. The National Archives has repeatedly confirmed that the vast majority of the 6 million-page collection is technically declassified. But declassified and posted online are not the same thing. As of April 2025, over 700,000 pages had been digitized and added to the website just since January 2024. That's progress. That's also an admission. Hundreds of thousands of pages that were legally available weren't practically available. If you wanted to see them, you had to travel to the archives in person, request specific documents, and wait. For researchers, historians, and journalists, that's a massive barrier. For the average American, it might as well not exist. This is the quiet bottleneck, the slow drip of actual access, controlled not by dramatic declassification orders, but by workflow, resources, and institutional pace. Step back and look at the pattern. 62 years after Dallas, we're still fighting for transparency, not because of some grand conspiracy necessarily, but because the system is designed to protect itself. Intelligence agencies have always operated in shadows. That's their nature. The problem isn't that secrets exist, it's that the process meant to end secrecy keeps getting reshaped to preserve it. Biden's transparency plans outsourced the decision-making to the very agencies that benefited from secrecy. The 1992 law said disclosure should be presumed unless specific harm could be proven. The 2023 approach flipped that, asking agencies to plan their own transparency and trusting them to be honest brokers. It's like asking a defendant to decide what evidence the jury should see. And even when a president orders full declassification, the machinery moves slowly, deliberately, filtering release through digitization schedules, legal exemptions, and bureaucratic process. Call it structural secrecy. It doesn't require a conspiracy. It just requires inertia and institutional self-interest. So what happens now? The National Archives continues digitizing. More documents will appear online, month by month, year by year. Congressional oversight committees have pledged to identify remaining tranches that need declassification. The process grinds forward. But some files may never surface, not because they're classified, but because they're sealed by judges, protected by laws never meant to intersect with JFK disclosure, or simply lost in the vastness of government records. The FBI found 2,400 documents in 2025 they'd somehow overlooked for 30 years. How confident should we be that every page has been accounted for? And here's the deeper question. Even if every document were posted tomorrow, fully searchable and annotated, would it satisfy anyone? The Kennedy assassination isn't just a historical event. It's a wound in the American consciousness, a symbol of distrust in institutions that claim to serve the public but seem to serve themselves. Documents can't heal that wound. They can't restore the faith that was lost. What the files reveal isn't just information about 1963, they reveal how power protects itself, how transparency becomes a performance rather than a practice, how even the most explicit legal mandates can be delayed, reshaped, and managed until the urgency fades and the public moves on. 62 years, 6 million pages, 80,000 released without redaction. 2,400 found only when someone finally looked hard enough, and still the sense that something remains hidden. Maybe the real secret isn't in the files. Maybe it's the realization that institutions will always prioritize control over candor, that the apparatus of secrecy is more durable than any law demanding sunshine, and that we're always one executive order, one transparency plan, one bureaucratic delay away from the truth we were promised. The JFK files aren't just about a murder in Dallas, they're a mirror. And what they reflect back is a system that would rather manage what you know than trust you with everything. The documents are still coming. The digitization continues. The story isn't over. But maybe it's time to ask a different question. Not what's in the files, but why, after all this time, we still have to fight so hard to see them. If this story left you thinking, if it changed how you see the machinery behind the headlines, share it. Subscribe for more investigations into the stories they hoped you'd forget. And remember, transparency isn't given, it's taken. One document, one demand, one moment of accountability at a time. The truth is out there. The question is whether they'll ever really let us have it.